Hello and welcome to the Sportwalk Show. This is actually the last show in the series, but don't worry, we've got some standalone videos planned for the summer, and we'll also be releasing some more of our Sportwalk challenges, as if you haven't got enough to be getting on with. So, in today's show, we'll be trying to look kindly on tarmac and suggest ways you can turn the black stuff to your advantage. We set a real live Olympian a sport walking challenge to celebrate this, hopefully, being Olympic year. Kaz is here with another of her stepping out features, and I'll be lifting the lid on Decathlon's new walking shoe. But first, we had an interesting request from Matt in Portsmouth, who said, could you do a video all about socks? Well, the short answer to that is yes, although on the surface it might not seem the most riveting subject to do a video about. But actually there is method in Matt's madness, because learning about socks is a very good idea, because your socks do have a big impact on how you perform in your challenge walks. Quite simply, get your socking wrong and you could end up with blisters, or worse still, a DNF. Now, while socks are and will be a highly personal item, there are some fairly standard rules that have worked really well for us, and we see no reason at all why they won't work for you. First, great socks can't compensate for bad shoes, so you need to see this as a partnership. You need to have well-fitting appropriate shoes for your challenge, ideally an ultra-distance model, and by well-fitting I mean they must hug your foot and not slip around. Once you're in this place and you've got that dialed, looking at your socks is the next thing to do. I'd highly recommend double socking, and I do this both in summer and winter, but it's got nothing to do with the fit of your shoes. It's all about reducing the chance of blisters and adding some extra cushioning. I use the same base sock for summer and winter, and in the summer I just use a short light oversock that works well with shorts. In winter I simply replace this with a long woolen outer sock, and that basically takes care of almost every situation. For your base sock, which is next to your skin, you need to pick a model that's got really good ventilation, and it also wants to have great padding under the forefoot and heel. It's vital that this sock fits you like a glove. Well, not like a glove, obviously, fits like a sock, but it's got to be very close fitting with no slack at all. It also needs to be made of a material that isn't too stretchy, as this can get held by the shoe and then form a fold or become slack later on, and that can lead to blisters. If you like socks with the individual toes, then that's fine, but whatever you do, this sock has to fit like a second skin. Your outer sock also needs to fit really closely and be not too stretchy as well, but this sock should have less padding under the forefoot and heel, so you're not overdoing it. When you put your shoes on, it's really important to pull both of your socks really tight so that you don't get a fold as you slip your heel into the heel box, because that's going to come back and haunt you later on. So which brands are good? Well, I can only speak from experience, but I really like using Thorlo Xperia socks as my base sock. I discovered these socks through running and they really are marvellous. I use them in all my challenges and for training. They're light and stretchy, but their fit is excellent and they never go slack. What's really great about these socks is that the main body of the sock is actually largely mesh, which really helps with ventilation. On top of my Thorlo's base socks, I use a pretty standard pair of running socks from Decathlon. Now, I'm a bit of a big fan of Decathlon running socks. In fact, I'm a bit of a big fan of all of their socks. It's one of the products they really excel at in my view, and I use both their summer and winter socks on top of my Thorlos. So there you are. Possibly not the complete life story of the humble sock, but hopefully some tips that are going to help you give your feet some love. We sport walkers love our trails, and while most of the challenges we take on are predominantly trail based, it's kind of pointless trying to pretend that roads and pavements don't exist. So here are 5 ways you can embrace tarmac so that you can get more out of your sport walking on a day-to-day basis. The first thing you're likely to encounter when you step out of your home is tarmac, unless of course you're lucky enough to live in a remote croft in the Scottish Highlands. Roads, pavements, walking and cycleways are all around us, so why spend time driving or walking to get away from them? Learn to embrace them, especially for your day-to-day walks and training walks, and see them as a resource to be used. It's not about preferring them to trails, it's about seeing the positives, so you can save time or get your training done with less fuss. Tarmac is largely a clean and clear surface to walk on, so instead of constantly having to clean up your gear of mud, dust or other debris after you come back from the trails, walking for your day-to-day training on roads or pavements means you'll be saving yourself all that prep and clean-up time, especially if you're on a tight schedule. It also means you can use any training or running shoes, so if you've only got one pair of trail shoes for your challenges, you're not wearing them out during day-to-day walking. You can save them for the weekend when you naturally want to be more adventurous and go out on the trails. If you're walking on roads for your everyday training, when the weekend comes and you hit the trails, you'll enjoy them so much more. That's not to say that trail walking during the week means you'll lose appreciation for them, it's just that if you can do at least some of your weekday sessions on roads, it creates difference in your routine which will help you keep things fresh. And you'll have extra enthusiasm at the weekend when you hit the trails for your long training walks. Tarmac is on the whole smooth and regular, potholes aside. This means that it's great for working on your walking form and style and for perfecting and embedding those technique adaptations that will help you walk faster for longer. It's much easier to repeat technique adaptations on tarmac because of the regular surface. If you're trying to master leg drive on trails, you'll be continually facing disruptive elements such as mud, tree roots, rocks and undulations. These don't stop you working on your technique, but they make it harder to bed in that muscle memory so you move instinctively. Do this work on tarmac and you'll make faster progress. Last but not least, there's a far bigger road network than there is a footpath network. And of course, all roads are mapped on widely available mapping software like Google Maps. So not only will you have greater scope to create a wider variety of routes, you'll never have to worry about getting lost or navigating back home if you come over all Bear Grylls and go, "Ooh, I wonder what's down that lane." There are, of course, some downsides to tarmac, most notably the fact that it's a hard, unforgiving surface, and also that you're more likely to encounter air pollution. Pollution is a harder thing to avoid, but if you limit your tarmac sessions to around 10 kilometres or 6 miles, you won't have to worry about the impact walking on roads has on your body. Just think of roads as being a resource and use them to your benefit.
Hi everyone, Kaz here, and in Stepping Out today, I want to talk to you about playing catch-up. No, I'm not referring to your email inbox, I'm referring to improving your walking performance. Although, by taking yourself off for a walk, you may just solve that work problem you've had hanging over you. I guess that's the point of sport walking, isn't it? To improve your speed, capability, getting you event ready, or even just fitter for life in general. Often though, when we're out and about on the trails, it's easy to get stuck in a speed rut, especially if you've been walking for an hour or so and you've fallen into a more leisurely pace whilst you select your favourite podcast to listen to, or perhaps plodded up a hill and your brain has clicked you into rest mode. Well, I have a surefire way of getting your lungs inflating again, and it's this. But to kick things off, I need a volunteer. So hands up. No one? Okay, I do want to have to do this, but I'm going to have to find another way. Rog.
Kaz?
I needed a volunteer, Rog, and I can't get anybody to volunteer, so can you do it?
Yep, okay, what do you need?
I need you to give me a demo on catching up.
Okay, I just need to get my shoes on.
Yeah, that's cool. So pop your trainers on and we'll go for it. Ready?
Hold on, give us a chance.
Okay, with Roger primed and ready to go, let's do it. So, Roger's ambling along at his usual snail's pace after an ice cream.
Oi.
And having realised this, he feels the need for a boost. Firstly, and this bit's really important, he shuts his eyes and imagines he's Luke Skywalker in Star Wars TIE Fighter or Maverick from Top Gun. Then, he locates a walker in front of him and laser locks his sights on that person's back. Next, he makes his mind up to overtake them by a specific target, and this could be a tree or a bridge, or my favourite, a stile. I mean, who wants to wait for a stile, right? Right, Rog, go. Begin to pick up the pace and increase your speed with power yet control, and keep going at your quickest possible pace until you reach them, using your glutes to push your body forward. Go on, Rog, faster! Then the cheeky overtake, and remember, you may have moved so fast that you transformed into a stealth jet in the process, so be aware that they may not be expecting you to be there. Then glide past effortlessly with a morning on your way through, and he's done it. Well, Rog, how do you feel?
A bit bushed, if I'm honest.
If you don't have a person to catch up, use a tree and go as fast as you can to get to it. You can do this as many times as you like on a walk, and you can even time the in-between sections so you get some nice intervals going. It's great for improving your fitness quickly, and you'll keep that overall pace time up. So to recap, aim long, laser lock, catch up and glide through. Right, I have a target to meet. I'll beat you to the style.
While big tests are a major focus for any sport walker, building challenge into your everyday walking is great for keeping your motivation high all the time, not just when you're training for a challenge event. So here are some different short challenges that you can build into your everyday walks, and they're all mainly designed to be done on road, so you can spice up your walks as often as you like. Possibly the most common everyday challenge I'll take on is what I call the hunter-gatherer. The premise is really simple. You take a rucksack and walk to your local supermarket to get a few supplies. You want a reasonable list of things to pick up, so you get to carry a fairly decent load back home, but don't try and do a full weekly shop because you want to avoid carrying things in your hands. You walk to the supermarket keeping a strong pace, not flat out, but a good strong pace. Then, weighted down with your shopping in your rucksack, you walk back home keeping as close as you can to the speed you walked at on the way out. The hunter-gatherer is great for building leg strength because of the weight you're carrying, but also because you're trying to keep the same pace on the way back as you did on the way out with that extra weight. It's also giving you an aerobic hit, so it'll give you general fitness benefits as well. If you live in an extra-urban or semi-rural environment, chances are you'll have some short sections of footpath dotted around your neighbourhood. For this challenge, plot a route on roads that links all of these fragmented trails or footpaths together to build a single route where you walk all the trails or paths in your neighbourhood, and use the road network to go from path to path. I did this where I lived, and I managed to come up with a route that was over 16 kilometres or 10 miles long, so you can create some pretty decent short challenge routes just within your local area. In the last show we talked about measuring your top speed, but there's another measure that's really useful to know, and that's your 10k or 6 mile pace. This is because the pace you can walk 10k or 6 miles at is a pretty good measure of what you're likely to be capable of for a marathon or 50k. So in a normal training session, walk 10k or 6 miles and set your baseline short challenge pace. When you're setting your own challenges rather than just taking part in an organised event, you want to have as much variety as you can just to keep things interesting. And taking on an urban challenge is a great way to do something different. By urban, I don't mean just walking through a housing estate or retail park. I mean picking a town or city centre with many interesting places of interest and plenty of open spaces like parks or gardens, and then creating a challenge route that takes in all of these places. Points of interest are like your checkpoints, and you can plot the most green and interesting route through the town or city that leads you to all the best places. You'll probably struggle to plot a route that's ultra distance, but many cities now have their own marathon races, so why not just piggyback your challenge onto the route of a city centre marathon? The organisers will have included all the most interesting spots because that's what makes for an enjoyable route and keeps people coming back. So save yourself some legwork and use their route map as your guide. Similar to the All the Paths challenge is one where you seek to make a complete circumnavigation of your local area. Instead of taking a route from point to point to use trails or footpaths, this time plot a circular route that leads all the way around the area that you live in. You may go beyond your actual local area, but it's all about what you feel is your local patch and circumnavigating that. With all these challenges, you're seeking to complete them in the shortest time you can, and you also want to apply yourself in exactly the same way as you would for an organised event, taking consideration for your fueling and your hydration. You want to make this just like taking on any other challenge. It's just that it's making use of all the resources in your local area to build challenge into your everyday walks. As it's Olympic year, even if it is by accident, I thought it'd be really good to do a little experiment. What would happen if an Olympian tried sport walking? This is Helen Reeves, and she's Britain's first and, at the moment, only female Olympic canoeing medalist. She's a very good friend, and we've been working closely together and collaborating on sports projects for a number of years now. So I thought Helen would be a great guinea pig for this experiment. And we caught up a bit earlier in the week so I could reveal my cunning plan. I want to set you a challenge because I want to carry out a little experiment and just to see what somebody who's performed at an elite level will make of what we do in sport walking. So are you up for a challenge?
Oh yes, love a challenge, far away.
Given that you are an Olympian and a medal winner, I'm kind of interested in what the experience would be like for you as an Olympian taking on a sport walking challenge in terms of how you would approach it, whether you'd sort of bring in any of your sort of sport sciencey type approaches to it, that sort of thing. So I thought it'd be quite an interesting experiment.
Sounds good, especially these days as I like my running. I've always enjoyed running, but my knees and hips are getting a little bit achy and creaky these days. So I'm finding that actually, there's a limit to how much I really want to be out pacing the paths running. So I'm definitely up for a walking challenge.
So this actually could end up being quite a good move because if it's something that's going to be easier on the knees and easier on the hips, then that's just a good result. But I am also mindful of the fact that generally speaking, you prefer shorter distances, don't you?
Yeah, well, let's face it, canoe slalom I did about 90 seconds. So yes, long distance wasn't really my sport. However, as you know, I've done a number of endurance races over the last few years with the swim runs. So yes, it would seem that I don't naturally do it, but I quite like a long distance event as a challenge.
So how did that pan out then when you were doing the swim runs? Because previously when you've done things like half marathons and stuff, it's been almost like having your nails pulled out. So how was it that the swim run worked?
I think the biggest thing is it was changeable. So you're running for a bit, then you're swimming for a bit, then you're running for a bit more, and also the terrain changed. You were in beautiful locations, so scenically it was wonderful, stunning, and just that, I think that continuous change, so always having to be on your feet, think about the next part that you're going to. I think also the other interesting part about it was, because I didn't come from an endurance sport, was having to think about things like the fueling and actually how you're going to keep your body going, which obviously in a challenge like you sound like you're going to set me, I'm going to have to think about those elements again, which aren't things that naturally come to me because I traditionally did much shorter racing.
Yeah, because I've got in mind a distance of about 20 to 25 kilometres, depending on how the sort of the loop works logistically. And it's certainly not long distance, but you will need to take on some fuel and fluids. So that is going to be a part of it for sure. So what I think would be good to do is to first of all set you a short test, like just 10 kilometres, and then we'll formulate a little bit of a strategy and a plan of what to adapt ready for the final challenge itself. How does that sound?
That sounds good. I'm well up for that. 10 kilometres seems far more kind of reasonable distance, I must admit, to 25. But it is the initial go out and do it. So no, I'm well up for doing that. And I can think of a number of places. I'm lucky being in the Vale of Belvoir. You can literally walk straight from your door onto lots of off-road paths, which I like. So yeah, that sounds a great challenge.
So the only other thing is when you do this test, you'll need to track your pace, speed, that sort of thing. So I noticed a little white device on your wrist. So I'm presuming that you have the capability to acquire some data.
I do, yes. I can use my watch. Yeah, I'm all set up with Strava. So yeah, I can definitely monitor my speed and distance. Not the techiest of people, as you know, Rog. So I will look into that, but I can provide you with my stats as we finish for you to analyse and give me ways of how I can improve them.
We shall go into great detail about your data. We shall micro-analyse your data and form a cunning plan for the challenge itself. I'll just go out and do that whenever you like, and we'll speak in a few weeks and see how you got on.
Excellent. I will let you know.
Bye.
Bye.
Now it's going to be very interesting to see how Helen gets on with this, and we'll be back again at the end of the summer to see how it all went. Now, as you'll know from the last show, the winter training plan ended there, but there is one last really important phase that'll take you all the way through to your summer challenges, and that's what we call the spring transition. Now this phase takes us roughly from the end of April all the way through to July, but with some of the first challenges starting in June, it's important to set out what to add in now. First of all, there's no change to the minimum distances we set out on the winter training plan. But if you do want to increase your mileage, it's really important that you add it on to your main training days, not to increase the number of training days that you do. The way to ramp up your training load as the weeks go by is to seek out more challenging terrain. Also, to start doubling up the sessions in one day, and then to try and replicate as closely as you can the terrain you'll face on your actual challenge during your long weekend walks. The net result of this is that you're not necessarily increasing the mileage you do on individual sessions, but you're quite probably increasing your overall mileage, and you'll certainly be increasing the intensity of the work you're doing. This will take you all the way through until you start to taper in the last 3 to 4 weeks before your challenge. Now, tapering is a really important phase in your preparation and shouldn't be overlooked. If you keep beasting away with your training right up until the challenge itself, you won't be as fresh and you'll be more depleted than if you taper beforehand, which could make the difference between achieving your goal or failing. When you reach the last 3 to 4 weeks before the challenge itself, you want to get into a mode where you're really just ticking over, and you want to reduce the training mileage and the intensity of the work. The last thing to add into your spring transition is 3 to 4 long test walks that are designed to activate your readiness for the challenge itself. It'll also give your body a chance to settle into the longer distances that you'll be covering. These test walks should be around 40 kilometres or 25 miles, but if you prefer, you can just go for a full marathon distance. The ideal number of test walks for a 100k challenge would be around 3, but you can do 4 if you're in really good shape and feel the need. Timing is critical though, and the last test walk you do should be no closer than 4 weeks from your actual challenge. This is so that your body can fully recover, and through your tapering walks you can fine-tune your readiness to do battle at full challenge distance. Try to do these test walks on terrain that's as close as you can get to the terrain you'll face during your actual challenge. You don't have to train on the actual route itself, just replicate it as best you can. You should also walk at your target pace during these test walks and seek to replicate your food and hydration plan, so it's almost like a complete dry run. If you followed a structured training plan for a number of months during the winter and early spring, these final adaptations will leave you as prepared as you can be to shine on your challenge and nail your time goal. Way back during the first lockdown last year, Newfeel sent out some new shoes they've been developing to a number of walkers, myself included, to test out. Now, I've tested a few pairs of shoes from Decathlon in the past and found the walking action to be really rather good, so I was very interested to see how this new model differed. The shoe in question is called the Sportwalk Comfort. What a good name! Now, the first thing I should say is the Sportwalk in the name refers to these shoes being used for sporty walking, as opposed to these shoes being suitable for the sort of challenge walks on trails that we talk about normally. So these shoes are going to be suitable for sport walkers to use for training on tarmac or hard-packed gravel paths. You might think that this limits their scope for sport walkers, but of course with so much training potential being on tarmac or firm off-road paths, these could actually be seriously good everyday shoes for knocking out those baseline road miles, and they'd certainly be ideal for anyone looking to get fit through walking. When I first saw them, what impressed me was the design evolution from the previous power walking shoes I'd tried. It seems that Newfeel really gets the demand and desire from people to walk for fitness, and these shoes really hit the mark in that respect. Design-wise, they have a really nice look and come in both men's and women's models. I really like the colour, and although I realise that white or pale shoes will quite quickly get dirty, these shoes reflect the fact that building training or walking for fitness into everyday situations is vital in encouraging people to make changes. So the fact that these shoes can finish off an urban outfit very nicely and still deliver walking performance is great. But while form is important, the function is what really matters. And in the short time I've had these to try out in anger, they have really impressed me. The main thing that's different from previous Newfeel models is that there's increased room in the toe box, and that's a very big plus point. I have narrow feet, but while the toe box did feel really roomy, I was still able to get a very nice, snug, tight fit. For me though, the real value in these shoes is the sole. Previous Newfeel shoes I've tried have had a very good walking action, but the comforts really build on that to give, in my view, an excellent mix of cushioning and firmness that's needed to propel you along at a good speed. The big drawback of using running shoes or general trainers for walking is that in the most cases the soles are designed for high impact, either for running or because running is the main form of movement for whatever activities they were designed for. This means that the walking action can feel squishy, sucking the power from your walking stride. This is why picking a walking specific shoe for your tarmac training is such a good idea, because you're using a shoe that's designed specifically for that purpose. I found the walking action of these shoes gave me a really nice transition from heel landing through to toe push off. They were flexible but not too much, so you got the propulsion you needed to get a good leg drive. I did have a couple of small niggles with the design, but nothing that would put me off using these shoes for everyday training. I would like to see some padding around the shoe opening. I'd also like to see some more padding in the heel box itself, given that heel landing is an unavoidable factor of walking. It wasn't really a big issue though, and these shoes are so good that I think with a few little adaptations, perhaps in the next iteration, they really could become giant killers. The best thing about Newfeel, and all Decathlon products to be honest, is their price, and with the men's model being priced at around £45 or €55, you're really going to be hard pushed to find a better shoe for this specific use at this price. It's really great to see these shoes now on sale, and I've been very impressed with how Eric Flieger and the team have reached out to walkers to get their feedback and then to build that into the design of the shoe as they progressed. These really are well-performing shoes in terms of how they support a good walking action, so if you can, I'd strongly recommend you have a look at them for your everyday walking and training. Right, challenge time, and this time it's very, very simple. Just pick yourself one of the everyday challenges we outlined earlier on. Now, I probably wouldn't choose the 10k test because let's face it, that's really quite simple. Pick something that's going to be a bit more interesting, like hunter-gatherer or circumnavigating your local area. Just make your selection, take it on, and then let us know how you did. Right, so that's it for this show. As I mentioned at the top, this is the last show in the series, so I hope you have a really great summer. I hope you nail your summer challenges, and I'll see you again soon. It's the middle of April. No, it's not. It's the end of April. And why wait. No, I'm just not going to do that. I'm just going to go straight to socks.
Is that enough of a gap?
It's kind of... No. Always stick to the script. And while most of the challenge we see... That's it. Dismissed. Go home.